I didn't notice the number on the site. That shows up on that. Yeah, we lost it.
Ready? All right. Again, thanks for coming today, you guys, and taking the time out of your day. Berlin is the owner of Terra Transitionals from Northwest Iowa, Orange City. He's got a wealth of knowledge when it comes to soil biology, soil health, and fertility. I guess I'm gonna just leave it to Berlin to just educate us on the things that he knows and things that have been working.
Okay, we'll go through a lot of material quickly today. I always bring folders to the meetings so that, because when I go to a meeting and I get home, I can't remember what anybody said. So you'll have all the reference material, what you have there, on your right-hand side, I think in the folders, is all the slides that we'll have up here. Some of them we won't spend any time on, we'll just move right along through some of this stuff in the essence of time here. So we'll cover a lot of material in a little bit of time. I like to have open meetings, comments, questions. Feel free, okay? That always makes the meeting better. So we got a nice sized group here and it works good for that. So like Dave said, that's the name of our company. We call what we do smart soil technology. Positive bottom line agronomics is, you guys all know, farming's a little bit tough right now. And everybody's looking for ways to cut or be able to reduce their input costs and help with the bottom line. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. We're going to show you some numbers on what we've been doing as far as testing is concerned, that may give you some ideas on what you can do to help in your operation. So this thing didn't go. It isn't. We're gonna be in trouble. Hang on here. What's going on? Here we go. Okay. So I'd like to start with this slide. How many of you guys have used biologicals? Okay. Biologicals are in today's world, because so many of them don't work, pretty much referred to as snake oil. And so hopefully we can show you what we're doing and what we've been up to the last number of years with this. We shipped to, I think last year we shipped product to 17 different states. We've got a wide area of distribution, so we do a lot of work in a lot of different areas. Okay, so we're going to talk about balance, and hopefully you'll catch on to this as we move through this. Of course, the first limiting factor in crop production is the water. You don't get enough water, but what drives your production is this right here. This is what you're all about. And if you can't read it from where you're at, it says 6 CO2 plus 6 H2O and sunlight gives you sugar. But you guys are producing this sugar, right? Would you agree to that? That's what plants produce. You don't get a crop without sugar. And there's a lot of factors that enter into that. So what we're going to talk about today is compaction, residue management, soil predators, nutrient tie-ups, lack of nutrient mobilization, and leaf diseases and white mold. Some of those diseases we'll touch on, we won't get into very deep, because I know up here, how many of you guys deal with white mold up here on the side? Oh, really? That surprises me. Okay, all right, then we will touch on that. So this is what happened last year. We just said, actually sunlight is next to water is probably one of the most important things, but this is what happened in 2023, and this is a chart on solar radiation. Nobody pays any attention to this. But without the sunshine, you don't produce chlorophyll, you don't produce sugar, you don't get a crop. So what happened in 2023 was the solar radiation during these critical times through R1, through grain fill, was going up on these years. But last year, and this was taken from down in Nebraska, this may vary by areas, but I don't think so. But this is what happened last year. The numbers went, the solar radiation went down, down, down. Did that affect production? I know it did down in Nebraska. They lost a lot of yield down there. And it came at a time when they were getting hammered with tar spot and southern rust. Have you had that up here? Any of you guys? Okay, good. Because that's a real problem as you get down, I think pretty much south of I-80 is where it went, but a lot of that comes up from the south. Okay, so again, photosynthesis is without photosynthesis, you're dead in the water. So what we contend, since we're snake oil salesmen, is you've got to change the microbiome in your soil. How many of you have biology in your soil? You all do, right? If you didn't, you wouldn't grow a crop. The problem is, it's what you have out there or what you don't. But the first thing I want to address, how many of you own one of these? Okay. This is to test soil compaction. How many of you have soil compaction? Wherever your last pass was with a tillage tool, I don't care what it is, inline, ripping, or whatever, is where your compaction layer is going to be. It can be 6 inches deep. It can be 2 or 3 foot deep. Everybody has compaction. And if you didn't raise your hand, you need to be checking. So soil compaction, and I contend this is the #1 problem in agriculture today. Yes.
Was a good place to source or buy one of those in the proper brand manufacturer.
I have used, this is a Agritronics, and I've used one of these for 30 years. You can get them online. They're a couple $100, $220, I think. But I've had one for a long, long time. I'm on my second one now, but this has a dial on it. For those of you not familiar with it, it has a dial on it, and as you go down, when you hit a compaction layer, it'll stop. And if you get to 300 on the red here, roots will not go through that. I had a guy call me up, this has been 5-6 years ago, one evening, and he said, I'm out here combining, my monitor's going from 150 to 250. What's going on? I said, well, I don't know. I'll come out. So I came out the next morning. I took this along, we went out in the field, and I said, here, you take and put this thing in the ground, and you check we're gonna see where your compaction layer is. So we went where he was getting 250 bushel corn first. And that thing went down to about here. So his compaction layer was about that far down. And then we walked over to where he was getting 150 bushel, and it went down to here. That was it. Soil compaction is your biggest enemy, and if you don't address it one way or another, it will continue to be your biggest enemy. If you have an area in the field where you're wondering about yield, you should own one of those, because it would tell you the story. Okay. You can put all the fertilizer you want out there where you have soil compaction and you're not gonna get yield. It's that simple. So anyway, they say that soil compaction costs from 10 to 50% on yield. The guy went out to see 100 bushel. What does that figure out to be? I'm just telling you, this is not a hard thing to fix. By the way, this guy 2 weeks later had a deep till, and he was deep tilling that ground, and he was having a problem. So, there's two ways you can fix it. You can fix it by deep tilling. It's only gonna be temporary. And however deep you till it, that's where your next compaction layer is gonna be. We use biologicals. The biological we use is this thing right here. It's called Biomentum. That's the name of the biological we use. And that stuff will go down, down, down. And I'll show you an example of it here. But okay, so these are the ways you can till it. How many of you guys do any kind of tillage? Or are you no-till, or anybody no-till here? Y'all do tillage? Okay. All right, well, anyway, I don't have to explain these, you know what those are. So what about biology? This is a guy that started with us 2-3 years ago. And I'll show you a little video, hopefully, of what he did. So as we said, there's lots of biology in the soil, but the biology doesn't work unless it has sufficient carbon. Do you have sufficient carbon? How many of you are on a carbon program? There's carbon programs out there. Anybody doing that? They're available. Our company doesn't get into that, but there's different things available. So they measure how much carbon you're building in the soil through cover crops and different things, right? The problem is, in case you're not aware of it, what's the average organic matter up here in this part of the country? 3%? 3 to 4? Yeah, right in there. Okay. For every 1% of organic matter in your soil, there's 10,000 pounds of carbon out there. For every 1%. Okay? The problem is, it is tied up in your organic matter. And the biology can't get at it. So I'm going to reference these guys several times, and I use these all the time. This is what you have in your soil, the most of. This is bacteria. You have 90% bacteria and 10% fungal. How many of you have heard about fungal? Fungal has gotten to be a big deal, and there's lots of people getting on the bandwagon. So when this was all grass, all prairie, it was 50-50, fungal bacteria. But every time we till, we release carbon into the air. And we've released the easy stuff for the bacteria to utilize. The way you get that 10,000 pounds of carbon in your organic matter is through biology. And you can only get, if you got really good activity, you can only get 3 to 5% of it a year. That's it. That's all you can get. So this is what you want to build, and we'll get to why that is here in a bit. But so the majority of the microbes in your soil are in a non-active state or dormant. So you got all kinds of biology out there, but it's sitting there doing nothing. You know why? It's just existing. Okay? It's because these guys, whether it's these guys or these guys, require a 16-to-1 carbon to nitrogen ratio. How many of you have heard of CNN ratios? Okay? CNN ratio is what makes the biology work in your soil. 90% of the soils that I've tested are about 8 or 10-to-1 carbon to nitrogen. At 8 or 10-to-1, your biology is just going to sit there and do nothing. It'll be alive, but it doesn't do anything. To get it to reproduce and grow and work for you, it's gotta be at least 16-1. Okay, otherwise, that's why it's sitting there in a non-active form, and we'll get into why that's important. Yes,
Is that the same for bacteria as well as fungi?
both.
Okay, and does that hold true through the entire soil profile, or is there, or obviously the plant is creating a microenvironment where the sprays is going to be balanced, or it would never get any fertility?
You're right. So the root zone's a whole different story. Because of the sugar the plant is producing, it's pushing down into the root zone to feed these guys. And in the root zone, you'll be anywhere from 16 to 25-1, carbon to nitrogen. And then they really get going and cranking for you, okay? We actually, we put biology in furrow. We'll get to that, but we put it in furrow. For those of you that can do an in-furrow program, and we put carbon with it, and we put amino acids with it. Amino acids are a stable form of nitrogen. So, but the root zone's a different story. Thank you for bringing that up. I'm gonna see if we can get this little video going here. I wish I had volume here, but I don't. It doesn't show up very well, but this guy was out there. This is down in Nebraska. He's been on the program for 3 years now. And this was on Valentine's Day. And he went out there and just started digging around by hand. But he used to, if you could hear the video, he used to, and I apologize for that, for the way it looks, but he used to, every spring, they'd have to go in there and rip it because they'd have clods and it was hard. But that is not the case anymore. So, okay, we'll keep moving here, hopefully. All right, ROI. Your ROI, bottom line. Does everything you put out there give you an ROI? That's a problem today, isn't it? I don't care whether it's fertilizer, manure, whatever you're checking. Of course, herbicides, it's a little bit different deal because you don't take care of the weeds and you are in trouble.
Hey, Gordon, I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
Is there a competent test to determine the carbon nitrogen ratio?
Yes, there is, the Haney test. And we do that all the time. We check the carbon to nitrogen ratio. It gives you total carbon in your soil. It gives you the 1-day CO2 burst, which gives you an idea of how much biological activity you have. And that's usually directly related to the carbon in your soil that is there. But that gives you, they come up with the carbon because it gives you organic nitrogen as well. And so you get a C to N ratio with an eating test. It's a very good test.
Do you take that a certain time of the year or multiple times throughout the year to see what's going on?
Yeah, it's better if you do it multiple times during the year because it's gonna vary according to time of year, temperature, moisture and all that. So that definitely makes a difference. So, but if you're interested in knowing that, and that's the simplest and easiest test. So we're going to talk a little bit about ROI because of the nutrient availability and what's going on out there. How many of you do a soil test? How many of you know how to read a soil test? Kind of. What does a soil test tell you? Okay, it gives you organic matter, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, calcium, percent base saturation, your balance of what's out there. It gives you this test that we always do gives you your nitrogen here, and it also gives you some of your micros, sulfur, zinc, manganese, iron, copper. But what does that tell you? It's your mining report, isn't it? Tells you what's out there. Does it tell you what's getting into the plant? It does not. You keep putting fertilizer out there year after year. If you do not do some kind of tissue test, you don't know what's getting into the plant. The guys that raise the big yields, they're tissue testing every week. That's a little excessive, but because they want to know, they know what they have out there, but they want to know what some of these micros are. Because how many of you have heard of the barrel stave theory? Where you can fertilize for 250 bushel corn. If you're short on zinc, for example, you're not going to get there. You won't get to 250. I don't care if you have enough P and K out there for 250 bushel. It won't happen. And that's the thing we're running into in agriculture today. What we're trying to do as a company is encourage farmers to manage their crops like they do their livestock. And it's not hard, it's very simple. So we had a meeting up in Minnesota here a couple weeks ago. There was a guy there, he said, years ago he sold Conklin, and he said, the only thing we did for a guy was we had him put zinc in with his fertilizer. And where he did and didn't do it, it got him a minimum of 40 bushel an acre. That's how important these micros are. If you're not watching your micros and doing a tissue test or a sap test, that we have a little device here, and we'll refer to that later, but this is called Sensine. And you open that up, you clamp it onto the leaf, and you get a sap sample. A tissue sample tells you what's in the tissue. That is not circulating in the plant. It's in the tissue. It's not mobile. When you use this, you get a sap sample, and it tells you what's circulating through the plant. And it will tell you what you're going to be short of in 2 weeks. When you take a tissue sample, you're already behind the 8 ball. Okay? And we've got some very interesting tests that I'll show you here as we move along here. So this doesn't tell you what's getting into the plant. It only tells you what you have left out there to work with. How many of you put lime on? Okay. Lime is usually put on because you're low on calcium or your pH is low, right? Okay. Calcium is a big problem as far as getting it into the plant is concerned, and calcium is the main thing. Calcium is the bus. It helps to bring everything in the plant. So, what you're going to hear today, you probably haven't heard before, but we'll keep going. So your organic matter, we call it your soil bank, and this is what's in your soil bank. You can call it a checking account, a retirement account, a savings account. We call it a savings account. So your soil bank is made up of your organic matter and micronutrients. So how are we going to balance that? How many of you have seen this chart before? This is what's in your organic matter. When plant exudates, as this gentleman already brought up, feed the microbes in the soil, only then can nutrients be used by the plant. We got to get those guys working for you. That's what we're after. So for every 1% organic matter in the soil, they say there's 1,000 pounds of nitrogen per acre. So if you got 3% organic matter, you have 3,000 pounds of nitrogen out there. It's tied up in the organic matter because we're talking about these guys again. It's tied up in these guys. This is 5 carbon and 1 nitrogen. That's what's in a bacteria. In a fungi, there's 20 carbon and 1 nitrogen. But these guys eat about 70 to 80% of the same nutrients as we do to stay alive. So when we talk about those nutrients being in your organic matter, they're bound in these dead microorganisms. Okay? So phosphorus, 650, 115 pounds of potassium. So they're, like I said earlier, they're only going to release 3 to 5% if you really got things cooking. So here they give an example of 5% organic matter. That's the amount of nitrogen that you can get out of that, 150 to 200 pounds at 5%. If you have things working in your soil, if your C to N ratio is good, if you have enough fungal. Okay, so we're saying that soil is not deficient in minerals such as phosphorus. It's deficient in plant-dependent microbes. How many of you put phosphorus in? Okay, I think everybody does every year, okay? So, but here's the thing, 80 to 90% of the plant nutrients they're dependent on these guys. Fungal is what goes out into the soil and brings back nutrients. Fungal can latch onto a piece of rock and it can release all the minerals in there by what it exudes and brings it back to the plant. The bacteria then comes in and helps to digest it. But if we go back to the soil test, the problem is your soil is magnetic, isn't it? It has charge. Would you agree to that? Your soil is charged? Cations are positively charged ions, right? Phosphorus is a negative, nitrogen is a negative. You have positive and negatives in the soil. It's like these guys. These are magnets. When you put phosphorus in the soil, it immediately ties up with calcium, iron, or aluminum. Okay? How are you going to get those apart? There's only two ways, chemically or biologically. I'm going to show you an example of how that works. So this is what the experts tell us. Only 10% of the applied phosphorus is taken up by the plants. 80 to 90% of it is immobilized. This is a chart you may or may not want to remember, but depending upon the pH, if it's a low pH, your phosphorus is going to tie up with aluminum or iron. If it's above 7, it's going to tie up with calcium. And when calcium and phosphorus tie up, it's the same thing as what your teeth are made of. Your plants cannot digest that or break that apart. They don't have a digestive system. This is a mineral wheel. It shows all the interrelationships between minerals that are in your soil. We're not going to study that. You can do that if you're interested. So I want to reference this. It's been probably 20 years ago. This Hutterite colony could get beet lime up from North Dakota, and it's free. So you guys had put online, they could go get this for nothing. And we said, do you have an analysis on it? And, no, but we'll get one. So they got an analysis and they got the calcium, the magnesium, and up at top here was aluminum, 1,219 parts per million. We said, don't do it. Don't do it. Well, they went and got a semi-load and they put it on. So this was the soil test before they put anything on. They had P1 of 82, but their pH was 6.3, and their agronomist said you need to put some lime on. So they did. This is what it looked like after they put the beet lime on. Actual test. Their P1 went down to 8. Where'd that go? Tied up with the aluminum. You know what the two minerals in the soil that you have the most of are? Iron and aluminum. Okay? I can guarantee you, depending upon your pH, your phosphorus is going to tie up with aluminum, iron, or calcium. So we said to them, you got two choices. You go get a tanker of acid or you put some calcium on. So they went and put 1,000 pounds of Pell lime on, for those of you familiar with it, and their P1 went back up to 103. We overloaded the aluminum with calcium and drove that aluminum off and freed up the phosphorus in the soil. Okay, these numbers don't lie. I'm just trying to get you thinking about what you're putting out there and what's happening to it. So this is a little test that they did at New Mexico State University. They start putting nitrogen on to see what the plant growth potential was. That's what these bars are. That's growth. This is the amount of what they put on. So for nitrogen, of course, very little response with very little. And as they started putting more on, the plants started to grow. But it came to a point where when it got, when they dropped it down, the plants actually grew better. Phosphorus, the same thing, same kind of pattern. Potassium, same kind of pattern. Organic matter, same kind of pattern. Even though there's all kinds of nutrients in your organic matter, like I just showed you, you got to be able to release it. Then they did this one, fungal to bacteria. Remember I said it used to be 50-50? Fungal is what brings 80 to 90% of the nutrients into the plant. So when they got, when they started increasing the fungal numbers, and this was like, when they were down here, the first one, actually we're at 90% fungal, 90% bacterial, and 10% fungal. That's what that equates to. As they got up here, this is a 50-50 bacterial to fungal ratio. These are the plants, and this is the 90-10, this is the 50-50. Okay? That's how much difference it makes when you have fungal activity in your soil. So if any of you are familiar with any of these, but symptoms of a fungal deficiency are inadequate phosphorus uptake. If you don't do tissue tests, this won't mean anything to you. But phosphorus is a big deal. Dowdy and those guys that raise all that high bushel corn, they say you have to have at least 0.35 phosphorus in a tissue test in order to get a decent yield. You don't have the problems like we do down south of here, but beneficial fungi include species of fungus which devour pathogens. When the good guys decline, the disease level increases, and we're going to take a look at what causes that. So again, that's the problem. This is the label of the biological that we use. It's pretty simple. This is what's in it. Everybody says what's in it. So there's 9 different mycorrhiza cultures that mobilize nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, zinc, calcium, iron, magnesium, and manganese. And we've got a little trial in here that we'll come to later that shows you how it mobilizes all that stuff. There's saprophytic fungi, for those of you not familiar with some of these terms. Recycle nature, break down your residue. How many of you use a residue digester of any kind? Okay, good. It's worth a lot of money to you. No less than $125 an acre of nutrients. It's a big deal. Destroys pathogenic fungi and destroys biomimetic fungi, insect eggs, juveniles and adults. Good example of that would be corn rootworm. We've done lots of work with that and have reduced those numbers down to just about nothing with this biological when we put it in furrow. This is what's in a corn plant, and then the only thing you need to know about this is 45% oxygen, 44% carbon. Carbon is the number one thing you're short of. Nitrogen. 78% of the atmosphere is nitrogen. 70 million pounds above every acre. How many of you use nitrogen? You all do. I know you do. Where does your nitrogen come from? Huh? Commercial. If you buy nitrogen, you get all that, we're breathing it in every day. So what they do is they suck that 78% N2 nitrogen out of the air. They combine it with natural gas under pressure and heat. How many of you have used anhydrous? Because that's what anhydrous is. Anhydrous is, again, this is nitrogen, and natural gas is methane. So what you end up with is NH3, nitrogen, hydrogen, gas, okay? But it's a liquid under pressure. So you've got all this stuff right above you, free of charge. Free of charge. But everybody buys it. Right? Everybody buys it. Is there an alternative? The problem is, and this has been through university tests, only 10 to 40% that you put on out there is taken up by planes. That doesn't come from me. That's not any BS that I came up with. 60 to 90% goes elsewhere. You can't bank it because it's too mobile. This is a little test that was done years ago. Back in 2003, they checked the mean bacterial to fungal biomass. In other words, number of these guys, okay? And they applied the nitrogen. So this was the biological numbers in the soil. And when they put 240 units of nitrogen on, that's where they were at. When they put 200 on, they came up a little bit. When they put 90 units on, they really came up. More than 90 units of nitrogen applied at one time is going to put all of these natural nitrogen fixers that you guys have in your soil to sleep. It shuts them off, shuts them down, okay? They're free. They'll work for you if you let them. And that's what happens here. And I've got some good examples of that coming up right here. This guy, he had 90 pounds of nitrogen he put on out there on this field. Well, he's used to putting on 125, and he was nervous as heck. So he calls me up one day and he said, "What do I do?" I said, "Well, so that you sleep better," I said, "you better at least put 125 pounds on one side of the field and let the rest of it, with just the 90 units of nitrogen." The yield was the same on both sides. His nitrogen use efficiency, it's a number you'll see, was 0.39. Universities all say 1-to-1, don't they? That's pretty much standard. But he let the natural biology in his soil work for him, the nitrogen fixers. Okay? He started with us a year ago. This was his first year with us. He broadcast a quart of this stuff on his soil. He didn't put anything in fertile. He just broadcast the biomentum, the biological. And this is what he came up with. This is another guy, and he's used to putting on a lot of nitrogen. This is a guy in Nebraska. He's under irrigation. He used Sentinel Ag to monitor his crop to see how much nitrogen he needed to put on. It's done with a satellite. It reads it, and it's very accurate. And so what he did was, first year with us, this guy was first year with us. He farms around 7,000 acres over in Nebraska. He used the ABC info. The ABC, by the way, is amino acids, biomentum, and carbon, the things we're talking about here this morning. He's used to putting on around 230 units of nitrogen. And he usually raises at least 275 bushel corn, a lot of times 300. Well, there was a lot of leaf disease this year over there, so he had a nitrogen efficiency of 0.93. He didn't put any amino, anon, or a fungicide. I just said the biomentum or the ABC. The A is the amino acids. He didn't put any on the field. The rest of the field, most of it he did. He put 2 gallons over the top. And as you can see, he put fungicides on late because he was getting hit with leaf diseases. The next strip he did was 189 units of nitrogen. He got 277 bushel, but he also put a fungicide on late and amino acids. He had a nitrogen efficiency of 0.68, 166 units, 269.61, 155 units, 248.62, with no aminos or no fungicide. And how many of you put on fungicide? Wasn't everybody? Pretty much. Okay. The last 2 strips, 134 units of nitrogen, 282 and 275, and his nitrogen efficiency was at 0.47 and 0.48. This guy was shocked when he came to the end of the season. And I can tell you this year, he's gonna do things a lot different. He's gonna continue to use the Sentinel Ag program, but I'll guarantee you, he's gonna be in this area, and we're gonna do some experimenting with him this year, where we're gonna drop that down to 50 units of nitrogen, and we're just gonna use amino acids. But amino acids don't go this way, and they don't go this way. They're stable in the soil. So you don't lose them unless the biology uses them when they grow. You don't lose them. So I want you to think about this. He did do several passes of the biomentum on everything too, by the way, as it says here in the bottom. Again, you have all these slides in your packet. This is another guy. Same kind of thing. You put amino acids on, and cattle manure. In the end, he had a 270 bushel yield, and what he applied was 60 units of nitrogen through cattle manure, 60 units from UAN and ATS, 3/4 of a pound of AMS, 1.6 pounds from the aminos. That's all the actual nitrogen that's in the amino acids that we market, and a total of 122 units on 270 bushel yield. His nitrogen efficiency was 0.45. He put the ABC again, those 3 components in furrow, and he also used several passes of aminos and the biology over the top. But we got guys getting real serious about cutting costs, and this guy had a lot of leaf diseases this past year as well, like we all did down there in that area. But last year he raised 325 bushel corn, doing the same program. This is the 3rd year he's been with us. So get your biology to work, okay? Let it work. Just to give you an example on what we do with this biology. This is what we call AC pucks. We take the liquid biology, we make what looks like a hockey puck, and we put it in hog pits. And this is just an example, because you have nutrient tie-ups like we were just talking about earlier. You got it in manure too. How many of you use glyphosate? Doesn't everybody? Yeah. How many of you use Liberty? Yeah. Okay. How many of you can farm without it? Farmers say it all the time. I can't farm without. Okay, that's fine. Let's look at how we can help that a little bit. So anyway, this guy had in 2022, and I don't have the 2023 one, but it reads pretty much the same. His manure in his pit, for example, he was getting about 55 units of nitrogen per 1,000 gallons of manure. How many of you put in manure? Okay. The next year he put biology in the form of those pucks, and it went up to 83.6. Okay. Next year, same thing. Again, biology is what brings stuff in. So ROI, you got to talk about ROI. This is what, and you've got this sheet. This is what it cost him to treat that manure, $3.60 per 1,000. This is what he got back, $40 per thousand, 11-to-1 ROI, but here's the numbers. His nitrogen went from 54 to 83, phosphorus 15 to 37, 27 to 45, 4 to 10 on the sulfur. All those nutrients almost doubled, except for the nitrogen, simply because of what he had working biologically in those pits. Same thing needs to happen out in your soil to free up those tie-ups. Okay? But carbon is the second limiting factor in crop production. Would you guys agree to that? Or water's the first one. Everybody thinks of nitrogen, right? Well, we say carbon is king. So I've been showing this slide for 20 years, I think. This is done in the 50s or 60s, I think 50s. This Indiana farmer used dry ice as a source of CO2. When CO2 dissipates, it turns into carbon dioxide. He dropped 1 pound cakes every 25 feet in the middle of the growing season. Small section of the field treated with dry ice yielded 211, and where he didn't, it yielded 158. Carbon. This is a chart that you guys should pin up on your wall because this is the amount of NP and K and magnesium for a 300 bushel yield versus the CO2. These red lines down here, that's the amount of NP and K and other nutrients it takes to grow 300 bushel. This is the amount of carbon dioxide or carbon that it takes. That one of the first slides I showed you was 6 CO2 and 6 H2O to make sugar. Without enough carbon, you don't make sugar and you don't get a yield. Okay? Okay, we already looked at that. So we say carbon is king, but fungal is the pot of gold because fungal is what brings all those nutrients into the plant. So we've talked a little bit about carbon nitrogen ratio. This is a Haney test for those of you that have never seen one. And down here, it shows a 1 day CO2 burst, organic carbon, which is very high in this soil, 336, and the organic nitrogen and the organic seed-N ratio, 16.5 to 1. This soil is really working. This guy was on the program. He was in furrow for 3 years with ABC, and he put 2 quarts broadcast a year on the soil, and he really has things working. So this is a little kit that we use called a microbiometer kit. It checks the balance between these two. We were here long ago. We're here long ago. Now we're here, 90-10. What we're trying to do is we're trying to bring this back to normal. Okay? And the reason is very important because you're getting more nutrients in this that way. This is that same guy that I showed you the test from. This is the biological test. Fungal to bacterial. F25 fungal or bacteria 75. And this was between the row. When we do this, we take 5 rows in succession, and we take soil test in each one of those rows. We combine them, and we do the test with that microbiometer. And then we take between the row to see what the difference is. This was between the rows, where the only thing that was out there was what had been broadcast. This is in furrow. His fungal went up to 34% and 66%. This was a piece of ground that I have behind my warehouse. It's only 15 acres. I did a little experimenting. It had a gallon of the biology on it the year before. And this was between the row, and the fungal with that gallon on there went to 44%, and the bacteria was at 56%. We're starting to bring that together. In furrow, what we did was we doubled what we normally would with what we call the ABC. And here the fungal was 54% and the bacterial was 46%. Yes.
Is that on the top? You take this probe's
6
6
inches.
inches.
6
You're
inches.
moving residue.
Yeah, we make sure we move the residue out of the way, if there's any residue there, and then we take a sample of 6 inches deep. And we take a composite, all 5 of them, and then we test it that way. So, for those of you that don't do this, it probably doesn't mean a whole lot to you, but this is where your nutrients come from.
Do you see a shift in that throughout the season, before, after the rain, before herbicide, fungicide, pesticide application?
Absolutely. This was taken in early June. And depending upon when you take that, that's gonna vary. Yep. Temperature, moisture. How much sugar the plant's producing. We had derecho come through there. There wasn't hardly any corn standing up straight out in our area. And the corn was under a lot of stress. It looked like we had a hailstorm. The leaves were so stripped. So that honestly, the plants weren't producing a lot of sugar, but this was before that happened. That happened the end of July. So, okay.
What did you do on that?
Okay, so here, IF means it was taken in furrow, okay? The one before was between the row, BTR. See that?
Okay.
Okay, so I wanna know what's that, and we've taken hundreds of these done. I had a kid hired last summer, that's all he did. He went out and got samples. We took the ones in furrow, we took them between the row, we sent them down to Omaha to the lab down there. We did the soil test, complete soil test on them, we did the Haney test on them. We did this test on them, and then we did the leaf test on them as well. Because this is all baloney unless you're getting the nutrients into the leaf. So we did the leaf analysis on it as well, and I don't have that up here. I should have, but I don't have that up here. But we want to know, and we did this on a lot of different farms. We did this at least twice, as you're saying, at different times, at least a month apart on different farms, because again, this is all baloney unless you're getting it into the leaf. Doesn't mean nothing. You can have all kinds of biological activity out there, but if it's not getting into the leaf, why do it? So, anyway, you don't grow fungi without it. Now, this is a little, and I'm not knocking glyphosate or glufosinate, but when they've done hundreds of soil samples and glufosinate and glyphosate reduce fungal numbers to almost zero. These guys that you need. It takes them out, okay? And again, I'm not knocking these because you guys need this to farm. All right, this is what happens with glyphosate, for example. It's toxic to nitrogen fixing microbes. All those freebies you got in your soil that can pull in all that nitrogen for plants. Okay? The bacterial shikimate pathway is basically the immune system. It kills off the microhygia. That's fungal. That's these guys. The biological control organisms, earthworms, PGR, that's the growth organisms in your soil that are naturally there. On the other side over here, the big thing is this. Reduces the availability of uptake of essential nutrients, copper, iron, potassium, magnesium, manganese, nitrogen, and zinc. Remember that slide I showed you on what the biology does, what the biomentum biology does? It makes all those available. Okay. How many of you know what glyphosate was originally designed for? Anybody? Originally, Roundup was made as a chemical to clean boiler pipes because it's a very strong chelator. And so it just cleans them slicker than a whistle. So when you spray it on a plant, it goes through the plant into the soil, it grabs onto these nutrients and ties them up, and they are not plant available. That's the problem. Okay? It also goes into the seed, then does the same thing, into the corn and soybean seed. That's why I showed you the slide with the manure, because the glyphosate is in the seed and it chelates those minerals just like it does in the soil. Nothing complicated.
Can you tell me then how Roundup doesn't kill or Roundup, what mechanisms the plant have that's keeping the Roundup from killing it?
You probably have all heard this, but it's the shikimate pathway. In Roundup, if you took a plant that is not genetically modified and sprayed it with Roundup, you would not kill it if you put it in sterile soil. Okay? The reason is,
Wouldn't it die if it was in sterile soil?
well, yeah. It would live for quite a while, but eventually it would die, yes. Right. But what happens is the natural biology in the soil gets into the plant and it kills it. The shikimate pathway, again, is the immune system of the plant, and so it prevents that from happening normally. But I'm not an expert on that shikimate pathway thing. I know just enough to begin.
Does the plant have a secondary pathway then that compensates?
I'm not gonna say because I'm not sure. I knew that one time, but I've forgotten all that. I got schooled in this, I don't know, it's been 10, 15 years ago. But Roundup is a terrific, and so is glufosinate. By the way, glufosinate ties up molybdenum and cobalt. Okay? It doesn't tie up these things, but it does tie up those two things. And molybdenum and cobalt are extremely important. Moly is important in nitrogen utilization. So I'm just trying to make you aware of where tie-ups are happening in your soil. I'm not trying to point the finger at anything, but this is just what happens. Now, there's something you can do. So 15 years ago, we took two hog barns side by side. We put what we call these pucks in one and not the other. They were fed exactly the same pigs, same ration, same everything. Where we didn't treat it, there was 131 parts per billion of Roundup, and where we did, we cut it in half, 67. So in the process, what happened was we freed up those nutrients as well. When this biology eats the Roundup turns into carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Nothing toxic. One more. This was a test we did this past year. Had a guy come to me and he wanted to test this product that he had. And it doesn't show up very well on here, but hopefully it shows up better on the sheet that you have. But so he wanted a place to test a product. So I said, okay. So we got a farmer and he ran six different things here. The first one was without anything. And what they found was 130 or 140, 3 parts per million of Roundup in the soil. The next test we did was 3 quarts of ABC, which is the standard rate of ABC in furrow. We dropped that down to 41 parts per million in 6 months' time. Now, you may say, well, I don't want to get rid of the Roundup in the soil, but half-life on Roundup is 22 before it breaks down naturally. So whether you put it on 5 or 10 years ago, whether you put on 1 quart, 10 quarts, it doesn't matter. That's how long it takes to break down.
I've seen studies all over the board, it seems to me it's highly dependent upon how biologically active your soil is.
That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about, yes. That has all to do with it. That's what happened here too. We put the biology in furrow, and that's what we came up with. And you have to remember, when you're breaking that Roundup down, you are releasing those nutrients that we looked at that have been tied up, so that they're plantable. This isn't rocket science, gentlemen. This isn't rocket science. This is all simple stuff. Okay? So he put his product with the ABC, and I don't know why he did that. I didn't have anything to do with setting up the test. But anyway, it went from 25 on up to 47 as far as what was left in the soil at the end of the season when we took the samples. So there's a way to mitigate some of this if you want to do it, and allow the nutrients that you have out there to be plant available. Okay, so this is the ABC that I was talking about, amino N. And I've been making these amino acids since 2004. We take pig intestines after they have pulled the heparin out. Everybody know what heparin is? What it's used for? Heparin is a blood thinner. You have surgery, they're going to use heparin to make sure you don't have blood clots. Okay, so they pull heparin out of the pig guts. And when they're done with that, it's waste, right? And they can't run it down the sewer. So we bring it in, we've got two 6,000 gallon tanks. We bring it in and we process it, and we end up with amino acids. All of the 18 amino acids that plants require in what is called an L form. All 18. All 18. We've done all the testing up at Brookings when they were doing all that testing. Besides that, because of the source, there's 16 trace minerals in that as well that are in a chelated form that are not going to tie up with anything because they're chelate. The plant, when it takes in amino acids, it gets all that nutrition besides the amino acids. So,
Any plant hormones in that as well?
no hormones.
So no cytokines.
Nope. There's no cytokines in this, or this. No cytokines, period. This, by the way, is organically certified, organic production as well. Biomentum is. Whoops. Again, this is carbon. That's all it is, carbon. How many of you use carbon at all? Any of you put any out there? Okay. Again, that's the gasoline to make these guys go. Without that, it just sits there. It's in an available form, and they take right off. We put a quart, and a quart of in furrow. We keep them in equal parts, and we've done thousands of acres corn and soybeans. This is what the label looks like. Again, that's in your packets. It shows the nutrient analysis of it. This is the organic label. How many of you have heard of Earth Optics? Earth Optics is a company that they go out in your field. If you want soil tests done, they can. They'll do grid sampling or whatever you want to do for anywhere from $5 to $15 an acre. And for that, they go out and they get your nutrient analysis. They get biological activity and one other thing. But this is a guy. He's in charge of the Midwest, and last year we had him do some meetings for us because we feel it's a good management tool for farmers to introduce them. And he was laughing about what we did, but we got him to put some on this year. he's not laughing anymore because he got an almost a 10% increase where he put the ABC furrow where he didn't. Over 20 bushels the acre, in fact, 21 bushel advantage. And he did it on dry land, corn on corn, irrigated, rotated, dry land rotated, and dry land corn on corn. And this is the thing he came up with. He found that he had an increase in nitrogen fixing potential, because that's what one of the things they test for. Urease potential, sulfur solubilization, root colonization potential. And that's just a balance between positive and negative, like we were talking about, the good guys and the good and the bad guys. You want that about even. Fusarium, which is getting a big problem. Crown rotten corn. How many of you run into that? Anybody? It's going to be a bigger and bigger problem. You don't see it until harvest for the most part, unless you have a plant coming up lately. And the biggest reason you have it is because of this critter right there, Fusarium. And he reduced that with Biomentum by 80%, or with the ABC by 80%, gibberella and stock rot by 90%, and tar spot, which is a big deal down there in Nebraska, where this was done, by 80%. Yes,
Was this just one application in furrow, or did he come back and spray some foliar?
just one application in furrow.
He eliminated the starter salt rate.
He did. He did. They were on a program, and this is what they were doing, to answer your question. Year over year yield increases, they were making management changes, but in 2023, they were at a 1-to-1 nitrogen use efficiency, 192 bushel. They changed some things and they went down to 0.78, 212 bushel, 10%. And then this past year, he got down to 0.62, 256 bushel, extremely happy. I'll just say this, it wasn't due strictly to the ABC because they made some other changes as well. But this was done over where the program they normally use versus the ABC versus what they are normally using. But they replaced their typical starter in furrow with an ABC, with the ABC. So extremely happy. They also did fungicide applications too. So I'm not trying to give you the wrong impression here, but extremely happy with how things went. This is just a total sheet that shows all the things that they tested for in the test. They do extensive testing. So this was one that David actually did. This is from your field, okay? This was with bifenthrin. These were actually, I should have had those together. But ABC with bifenthrin, 224, 222. Without it, 224, 232. Insecticides are extremely hard on biologicals. These were in furrow. Of course, the bifenthrin was probably the regular rate, right? Higher rate, okay. We've done a lot of that with guys that have rootworm problems. We've checked 3 different kinds of insecticides for rootworm issues, and they all have a degree of damage to the biology. David also ran it against Relay. How many of you are familiar with that? Relay is a product that I think Dowdy and Hula. Hula?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that a fertilizer?
I mean, there is some fertility in it, but it's 1 gallon. It's just not like you apply it, that's the rate.
It's kind of so these guys, so Hula and Dowdy, those guys say do not put fertility in. They say the phosphorus will not will shut off the relationship between the root and the fungal. In other words, they don't hook up. And so when you run out of phosphorus, the plant sits there. And they say it actually causes stall out. They say, put it beside the row, not in row. They say, put your biology and your biology feeders in row. I'm pretty sure that relay is a biology feeder. Okay? That's, because that's what they promote. So anyway, we did do better than those guys by 6 bushel and at a cheaper cost. And this was the second round, we did about 5 bushel there. And then Start Right is, that's another in-furrow product, Dave? Okay,
That was in the Bex PFR showing big response, so I thought, well, I'd try it. I tested a lot of different products this year and ABC was far above everything else that I tried. There was another one where I get my sugar, they had a program with the pH tester, nanozyme and sugar, and I think that one was 7 bushels less.
how many of you guys use sugar? Molasses or sugar? Okay. A lot of guys do. I think sugar can help. We don't use sugar. We use carbon. We think sugar does this, just like when you give a kid candy, and then it does this to biology, crashes. So we don't promote it. We don't suggest guys use it. You're on your own if you want to do that, but we just haven't seen any positive results with the program we have. We like to keep it a balance and feed the biologic, constantly all the time. So, but we did do a good job compared against, again, like David said. This was what he did on soybeans, again, the ABC and furrow, about 4 bushels better, on the soybeans. Again, this, the label. So this is a guy up by Brookings. How many have grass? Pasture or anything? Okay, this is the guy up by Brookings. He raises brome grass and he's got pasture for his cows. So this guy, this is the 3rd year he's been on the program. And what he found out was the first 2 years, first year on hay ground, he increased his bales tonnage by 33%, the second year by 45%. And so he's extremely happy. He put this stuff on. He put 8 or 16 ounces per acre on one time. That's it, one time. Put it on in the spring after everything greened up good, and he got this kind of an increase. This same guy on pasture, he put 16 ounces per acre on, and he had like 4 or 6 different paddocks that he put his cows on, rotated them. So what he did was he sprayed some of them with biology and not others. And as he says here, he decreased the mineral significantly, mineral intake. And by significantly, he said he went from 3 ounces per head per day on mineral uptake on his cows down to about a ½ ounce where he sprayed it on. Simply because biology, when you spray it on, it goes systemic through the plant down into the root zone, releases those nutrients like we're talking about, makes it available to the plant, so the cows are just not going to eat as much. They don't need it. This is another one he just gave us. Over the past 3 years, he tested the Biomentum on a 60-acre pasture. He had weeds out there. In year 1, he used the full amount of 2,4-D and 8 ounces of the Biomentum. Year 2, he cut the herbicide in half. Year 3, he didn't use any herbicide, just 8 ounces of Biomentum, and cut the herbicide out completely. He saw a decrease in weeds every year, specifically Canadian and bull thistle, and he's almost completely eliminated the bull thistle with a drop in herbicide. So anyway, what do you think?
I was gonna ask you, do you know what I don't have any idea, but what's the bull thistle designed to do in terms of bringing the root structure, bringing something like calcium?
Bingo. Calcium. Thistles are deep rooted. They're designed to bring calcium up. This goes back, the reason I have this is this goes back to, you've probably got anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 parts per million of calcium on your soil test, don't you? If it's 2,000 parts per million, you've got over 4,000 pounds of calcium per acre out in the top 6 inches. If it's 4,000, you got 8,000 pounds per acre out there. The problem is this right here. It's tied up. And there's not enough available calcium. I don't know if I took my book in here. I probably didn't. Anyway, you look, there's a book called When Weeds Talk. And there's all the minerals listed across the top. And there's every weed in the book in there that you guys fight. And the first column is calcium. And I'll guarantee you 99% of them says if that weed is present, you're either low or very low in calcium. Not because you don't have it in your soil. It's because it's not in the available form. The biology is releasing it. How many of you have water hemp? Bugger, isn't it? And now they're saying that it is getting resistant. So here's the weed book. This is just one of them. This is the page with water hemp tall right here. And you've got that sheet in your stuff. This is the calcium line. If you go down here to water hemp, it's low. Phosphorus, very low. Potassium, very high. Magnesium, very high. Manganese, high. Magnesium, high. Iron, high. Sulfates, they don't have listed. Now that means you've got lots out there, but it's not available to the plant. Okay? I should have taken my book in. Anyway, available calcium, that's all it is. You've got all these nutrients out there, but they're tied up. Anybody know what this is? This is a field of corn. You see the corn? There's one, there's one, there's one, there's one. This is a field of corn. This is down in Georgia. This is amaranth pigweed. They can't kill it with anything down there. Nothing. This is one half of the field. This is the other half. See the corn? That doesn't look like South Dakota corn, I know, but there's some amaranth pigweed down here, and there's grass in there, and that's easy for them to take care of. You know what we did here? No herbicide. We spread 500 tons to the acre of calcium. Pelline is what we put out there. That's all. 500 pounds to the acre of pelline. Except for where we kind of missed it along the edge here. That's the other half of the field. I want you to think about this. Nutrients are in your soil. How are you going to release them? This is one of our distributors. In October, he started this little experiment. He bought this little tool. By the way, when he bought it, these were $2,500. Now they're $3,000. But he bought that little tool, and he couldn't wait until this year to try it. So he tried this little experiment. He got 4 pots. He put a kernel of corn in each, and this is the control pot. This one has sulfur in it. This one has powder cake in it. That's got some nutrients in it. And this is the Biomentum one, where he put Biomentum in. Now, on your sheets, you'll see, and this gives a little explanation of it, if you want to look into it a little closer, but it gives the ranges here. But if we go to this sheet here, the last reading he took was here. on January 21. And what happened was something very interesting. Over Christmas time, they didn't water them for 3 weeks. It was like being in a drought. Okay, they all came. The control one and the sulfur one both kinked over. The Biomentum one was the only one that put an ear on. Now, this was potting soil with Miracle Grow fertilizer in it. Potting soil, okay? And this is what he found out using that little tool. It's very interesting. The chlorophyll reading, which you have to have in order to keep it green, was above everything else. If we go down here to nitrogen, 2,062 parts per million with the Biomentum. The control 1,600. The other ones weren't close. Phosphorus 414, 385, 366, 287. Potassium same way, 4285, 3684. Calcium that you're not getting into your plant that you got lots of, 694, 577, 135, and 393. That was the powder cake one. Sulfur, same way. How many of you put sulfur on? Okay. Sulfur, 365, 297, 300, 355. Magnesium, 192, 211, 178, 205. Iron, you don't have green plants without iron. It's in your soil, but it's not active. Iron, 1.48 with the Biomentum, 6.41. The other ones were 0.68 and 0.62. Zinc, 6, 11.1, 4, and 4.5. Chloride, 401, 483, 114, and 439. What this guy was extremely impressed was with the fact that, like I said, over Christmas vacation, they didn't get water, and you got to remember that these guys are 70% water. We have since sent in the soil out of each pot to Midwest Labs to have it completely analyzed to see what we actually have left in there. But that's what biological activity will do for you if you use the right kind. I know you guys like numbers and you want to see numbers, and I see we're noon already. I'm gonna flip through this stuff. But this is a guy, you can read these. He put Biomentum on with different applications, increase the yield. Here's another one the same way on soybeans, increase yield. This was one that was done with Conklin. 8 bushel advantage where he put 16 ounces on with his at V3 with his post herbicide. This is a product we've been using for 2 years, mostly up in North Dakota. I've got a large producer up there north of Minot that gets this from me all the time. And this is the experiment we did this year with it. We used the Biomentum foliarly at around, this was done at around, on corn at around tassel time. They put on a quart of Biomentum, got 190 bushel. They put on 16 ounces, half as much. And that foliar, 16 ounces. This costs $3. This costs $3. They got 9 bushel more. They put a fungicide on because, and this was in Nebraska, they got another 5 bushel. Same thing on another field. A quart, 16 ounces and 16 ounces. They picked up 18 bushel. And then the fungicide, they picked up another 6 bushel. So we fed the plant. Basically what we did is we fed the plant carbon. Remember that slide? All the carbon it takes compared to the amount of NP and K you need. You can't get enough carbon into your plants. I don't care whether it's corn or soybeans, you cannot. The guy that put the dry ice out there. You can't get enough carbon. we put carbon in there, and there's also amino acids in that product as well, by the way. Residue. Some of you use a residue digester, right? We have both a organic and a regular one. Labels are in your packets. This is a field in Nebraska. This guy's never used residue digester. And this, as you can see, was taken in summertime. He didn't put anything on this part of the field. And this is a corn soybean rotation. So this is from 2 years before. Half the field, he put it on. And all he put on was the biology. And he put that on in the spring when he put his pre on. That's the difference right there. Is that worth any money for you?
Is that no-till?
That's no tip. Yep. This is his soybeans the same way. This is where he put it on. Yes.
Are the ratios the same and the ABC is like an infertile product or foliar product, or you have an altered site?
So this was not ABC he put on there. This was straight biology. Nothing with it. Just with his pre-herbicide is when he put it on out there. ABC, this was a quart of biology broadcast. The ABC and furrow is a quart of biology as well. The quart of ABC and furrow will not do anything for residue.
Right, so the residue, it's just, right, it shows, and by
It's
environment and
so the residue digester, it has the amino acids in it, but it has half as much amino acids as the in-furrow product, as the ABC in-furrow. It's a pint of ABC, a quart of biology, and a pint of carbon. You cut those down, you don't need as much, you just need that burst to get everything going. You don't get breakdown or mineralization biologically without fungal starting the process. Bacterial cannot break those heavy stalks down. You gotta have the fungal there. Once it starts the process and then the bacterial kicks in. Okay? That's
Slides didn't use the digester, used.
only biology. This guy didn't put it on in the fall. He just, this is the first year with us. And so he put it on in the spring. When he put his pre on, and he went out there and he couldn't believe his eyes, the difference. He'd never seen it.
You say biology.
The biomental, this stuff.
do you prefer fall versus spring?
It really doesn't make any difference. This stuff, you can freeze it, you can thaw it, you can let it set out in the sun. It doesn't matter, it comes right back to life, just like the biology in your soil. So if you put it on in the fall, we got guys put it on in the winter time on their residue, because they don't, or this time of year when it's starting to get decent, halfway decent, they'll go out and put it on now, but it doesn't matter, it'll stay there all winter long. And then when it gets moisture and temperature, it takes right up.
Do you worry about dechlorinated water?
We don't. I know a lot of people do, and we get that question asked a lot. If you use something to get rid of the chlorine, that's good, because it is gonna have some effect on it. There's no doubt about that. But I put it in chlorinated water and looked at it under the microscope and didn't see. Just regular, real water or whatever. So, but it's pretty crazy stuff. Okay, this is what they say is in corn residue for pounds per ton. When you take it off, that's the amount of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and sulfur in it. So when you figure if you get 200 bushel corn, they figure a ton per 40 bushel corn is what is amount of residue out there. So if you put a value on your NP and K alone and not the other stuff in there, it's about $25 a ton. That's worth about $125 an acre. Now, there's one thing about residue. It is the first thing that plants prefer over manure, over commercial fertilizer. If it has residue, it will take that up first. It's kind, they're both the same. So it prefers that first. And so if you can break that down over the course of the growing season, those nutrients are gonna go right in the soil. There's a difference between mineralization, which is what we're talking about here, and decay. When you have decay, and you have decay when you don't have the right biological activity going on out there, what they tell me is most of the nitrogen, carbon, all goes this way, up into the air. It doesn't go into the soil. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what a guy told me here a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't realize that, but evidently that's what happens. So the residue digester costs this guy $8.65 an acre if you put it on. That's it, $8.65. This was an article, I don't have the full article here, but Strip Till Farmer, they did, actually Iowa State University did a 3-year study on residue breakdown. They said tillage, traits, and nitrogen don't affect corn residue breakdown because they feel that there's too many chemicals involved, but they say it could be a lack of fungal activity, which is what we're talking about growing with these. So just saying, that's what they did a study on. That's not any of my BS. Okay? That's it.
Erlen, talk a little bit about white mold.
Oh yeah, white mold. Okay. So we've done lots of stuff with white mold. We didn't realize that this product would work on white mold, but back in 2016, we started putting 8 ounces per acre with fungicide on corn and soybean treatments. And by accident, with the producers I was working with on this, because we were trying to see how much difference in yield there was. And sometimes we'd get a 10 bushel an acre increase when we put the biology on at only 8 ounces per acre with the fungicide. And the reason being is because the biomentum works on both fungal diseases and bacterial diseases. Takes care of them both. And so guys that had Gauss's wilt out in their cornfield and didn't know it was taking care of that and was giving them an extra 10 bushel. That's what it was. So anyway, we found out after about the 3rd year of putting 8 ounces on, and these were corn soybean rotations, that the white mold was not prevalent anymore. And didn't realize that it had activity on that. So we started doing a little more work with it. And so now we recommend broadcasting a quart per acre, and under heavy fertility, a lot of manure, that's not enough. We found that out as well. It takes 2 quarts per acre broadcast. You cannot work it into the soil. It's got to stay on top because that's where those spores grow and multiply and shoot out. And they say they'll shoot out, 1 million spores, one of those little mushrooms. So we had a guy in Nebraska, he had a field 2 years ago that he put it on that showed up heavy white mold. After the first year of applying the biomentum, the DNA testing showed no more white mold out there. Now, I have a hard time believing that with as many spores are out there because they'll lay there for, they're not sure how long. And if they're below the ground, the biology can't touch them unless, it gets worked into the ground. But what we want to do is prevent it from happening. We had 2 guys in South Dakota last year. They called us up They started with a program. They didn't put any broadcasts down early. And again, you cannot work it in or it doesn't do any good. And furrow does not stop white mold. You've got to broadcast it and leave it on top. But these two guys had not done that on their bean acres. And they called up and said, we got white mold starting out here. I said, okay, I'll send you some products. So we sent them some Biomentum. They went and sprayed the field. They flagged it. And the agronomist went back out there and they said wherever they had the white mold, it stopped. It didn't spread any further, is what I'm trying to tell you. I hate using this product that way. I'd rather use it as preventative and prevent it from starting in the first place. But we've also had guys with real heavy fertility, a lot of manure. I had one guy this past year. He put 2 quarts on, didn't incorporate, left it on top, heavy manure, and he got white mold in about 10 to 20% of the field. We did not stop it. But he's down along the river and he's got heavy, he gets flooding. And this stuff, there's nothing 100% new than this. But by and large, it has worked very, very well to prevent white mold. So we're doing a study with the University of Nebraska. We're starting a 3-year study. We started it last year. And I don't have the numbers up here because I don't have all the numbers back from them yet. But it was the primary thing was for prevention of white mold because they have it bad in Nebraska as well. So we're doing a lot with white mold and it works very well. But I tell guys, if you're going to use it for that, if you get an outbreak, you let us know. I'll get your product free of charge and get it sprayed. So, but it works very well for that. And there's a lot more we could cover here. What I'm trying to get you guys to realize is you have tremendous potential out in your fields. You've been putting manure or fertilizer on many years. And most of that is tied up because of the positive and negative stuff out there. Biologically, you can release that. You can help to reduce predators. You can do a lot of different things. But this is not a quick fix. If you're looking for a miracle cure, like I tell guys at meetings, you're looking for a quick cure, there's the door, because that's not what biology is. It's the first year you'll probably see something. Second year you'll start to see more, and by the third year is when you really start to see a change in your soils and stuff. That's what guys that use it tell us. So again, the reason I present this in this way actually is because we want to help reduce your inputs. If you're thinking about cutting inputs this year, don't cut them out completely. Don't go more than 50%. On nitrogen, never go more than 20% reduction. Your soil it takes time for your soil to build up, back up to where it needs to be. I had one guy did that a couple of years ago. I told him not to. He cut all the nitrogen out and it didn't turn out. So if you've got lots of things out there. You've got all those nitrogen fixers with all that nitrogen above here. You need to try some of that on your own ground. Even if you don't use our product, you still need to try it. You can help yourself. I know the co-ops and the big ag say if you cut, you can't cut. The guy that did the plant test in Nebraska, this is his 5th year. He has not put any P&K on. He's cut his nitrogen use down. The first year, his P1 went up. Second year, his P went up. Third year, his P went up. Fourth year, it stabilized. This past year, it went down just a little bit. So, yeah, when you start on a program like that, would encourage you, do soil tests, you don't have to do them every year, but, every other year, but you've got Ray Ward, who started Ward Labs. He was asked at a meeting one time, how much phosphorus do you have out there? And he said, well, enough for probably 10 years. I said, wait a minute. And he did some figuring. He said, I got enough for at least another 100 years. And he knows soils and he's done all kinds of testing. So I would encourage you guys to use your resources, use your soil.
Could you environmental, have, any other organisms like protozoa?
Pardon me?
Is your biomentum, have any upper level organisms like, protozoa?
No. Don't need to. And I'll qualify that. The biomentum is a balance. You know, people say, okay, you're trying to tell me that I need all of these guys. Why don't you just put straight microhygia? Your soil is not all microhygia. It's a balance. It's not just fungal. It's a balance. This stuff is a balance. It's 25% nitrogen fixers, 25% fungal, and the rest is bacteria. All different kinds, okay? When you get the right balance going on in the soil, and we've had guys testing this through certain programs, they will see their protozoa numbers actually go. Because everything in soil is balanced, just like here in nature, just like in our bodies. It's gotta be balanced. And when you get that balance working in the soil, then they're there. You just need to get them going again, because one feeds off the other. Protozoa feed off the biology and stuff.
Yeah, I've, this winter in numerous meetings talked about how much damage we're doing, particularly to the protozoa with herbicide, fungicide, insecticide applications. So how do we win this out? How do we improve soil biology at the same time?
You'll see. If you get on a program like this, you'll see all that come back. And I agree. I'm not, you need the tools you have, okay? You need herbicides, you need fungicides, you need insecticides. And I go through it this way: herbicides, fungicides, insecticide, homicide. You're killing something. And so we're trying to replenish that or lessen that, and build that back up biologically. So it's not a quick fix. And you'll find out as you get balance back in your soil, you'll be able to reduce all those. I got guys in Ohio, they've been on the program 6 years or more. They don't use any pre's. They don't need to put any pre-herbicides down. They go out there, they plant their crops. When their beans are about this tall, they'll have some grass out there. Let's go out there with a herbicide and take care of the grass. They don't. They've got everything balanced, and so they just don't get that. Just like that one slide I showed you. This isn't stuff in makeup. It's all very simple. Actually, we just got to start thinking about what we're doing, how to fix it. No, not rocket science. Okay, I'll shut up.
Any other
Next.
questions for Berlin here? Anybody?
Question on that beat line, so were you saying never apply beat line then, or just that particular stuff to have that aluminum?
As far as I know, all beat line has it in. And it also has a very high level of glyphosate in it. So the way they process beat line, from what I understand, it's all going to be. But if you're going to use beat line, please check it.
Well, they really push it in certain places to use it.
I know.
Not use the pelletized lime, but it's more expensive.
You get what you pay for.
They say this other stuff is free, just pay the shipping.
Yeah, I know. That's what these guys found out too, it wouldn't bring it. But I know, it's tempting. Just showing you so you understand. The charge of aluminum has one more positive than what calcium does. It's 10 times stronger as far as grabbing onto phosphorus than what calcium is, 10 times. Just with one more charge on it. So it's a big consideration. There's one thing about heavy metals. Once they're there, they're there to stay. Now, when you do a soil test or leaf analysis, aluminum is gonna always show up as part of what's in the plant, because the plant needs aluminum too. It needs all those. Just be careful. Just understand what's going on, okay?
In your slides, you show the test kit.
Microbiome meter,
And that gives you those results of the next slides you showed?
yeah, so that gives you the balance of these guys. And they've done extensive testing. They say it's 90% as accurate as sending it into a lab. But it'll give you the balance of bacterial to fungal. And, you know, I've done lots of these presentations and after the, you know, if you wanna know whether or not this stuff's working or not, that's how you find out. A test kit's about 125, okay? And anybody can do it. Takes 20 minutes to run a test.
The
That
test
tells you
kit
what's going on.
can be the multiple tests.
Oh, yeah, there's, the original test kit comes with all kinds of stuff in it, but there's enough in there for, I think, 10 or 20 tests, okay? And, yeah, that's what I had that kid doing all summers. He went through a couple hundred of those, so, but if you wanna know what's going on, bacteria and fungal in your soils, that's a pretty cheap way to do it. It actually comes out, with a test kit, it's around $10 a test, for each test. If you order the refills for the test, it goes down to right around $6 or $8. So, but they'll tell you whether this is BS or not.
Do you do anything with bricks testing?
Yeah,
Does that device give you that too as well? or
yes,
no?
it does.
It does give you bricks as well.
Yep, that sheet that I showed, you know, of those plants, those 4 pots, it had bricks on there too. Yep, it shows you the bricks. Bricks, chlorophyll, all that. Just like a sap test would. It's just about identical to a sap test. So, very accurate. And right now, I should qualify that, right now, since it was developed over in Europe, the only thing they have it on is corn. They don't have it calibrated for soybeans yet.
That device?
Yeah.
So if you wanted to take bricks levels throughout the season, you just want a refractometer.
Yeah. There's a lot more to cover, but as the second slide showed, I think that's enough manure for today. So,
All right, thanks, Verlin. Would you pray for the food, I guess, for us?
sure. Dear God, Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for all these producers that are concerned about raising crops, not only for their families, but for everybody else. We just pray that you will guide them in their daily decisions as they serve you through doing your will. We ask now that you'll bless this food which we're about to partake, and that it may bless our bodies so that we all may serve you each in our own way. In your name.
And Joe from Hurley's gonna do a presentation while you guys eat. He's the one sponsoring the food for the noon meal, so if you guys could tell him, thanks, he'll go ahead and go get your food and he'll talk for however long Joe wants to talk, I guess, but he'll keep it under an hour.
Put you guys to sleep.
Sure.
Want that board up there, then Paul, there's up there.
You know, farmers are visual people in some themselves, so I kinda.
Yeah,
We're gonna keep going, we're gonna keep going to school today, so.